Ryan Owens balanced a tray of champagne flutes in one hand while wiping his damp forehead with the other. The air conditioning had broken down in the rental van, and the catering order had come in less than 2 hours ago. "Dad, you forgot the napkins." Maddie, his 8-year-old daughter, called out from the back seat of the van, peeking out the window with a juice box in hand. "I got it, sweetheart," he called back, rushing toward the entrance of the mansion. His friend Greg had begged him to cover this last-minute gig, some big-time charity dinner uptown. Ryan hadn't planned on working tonight, but he needed the paycheck. Rent was due. Maddie's school trip needed paying. And there was something about the way she'd looked up at him this morning, holding her worn-out backpack, that made him say yes to anything that might help. He'd parked the van out front, careful to keep Maddie safe inside with the AC running, cartoons playing on the tablet he'd borrowed from a neighbor, and a sandwich packed from home. He didn't trust anyone else with her, especially not strangers. Inside, the ballroom glowed with gold chandeliers and soft jazz. Round tables were dressed in white linens and crystal centerpieces. Everyone looked like they stepped out of a magazine. Ryan tugged at his too tight white button-up and forced a smile as he weaved between guests. "Sir," a tall man with a clipboard snapped, "Table 15 is still waiting on their hors d'oeuvres. Move faster." Ryan bit his tongue. He wasn't about to lose this gig, not tonight. As he passed Table 15, he glanced up and stopped dead. She was sitting there, alone at the corner of the table, sipping from a wine glass and looking like she didn't belong with the rest of them. Her dark hair was pinned up with loose strands falling around her face, her lips a soft shade of red. But it wasn't her looks that caught him. It was her eyes. She looked sad, tired. Like someone who'd just ended a phone call she didn't want to hang up. He blinked, forcing himself to keep walking. But then, "Excuse me," she said. He turned, tray still balanced in his hand. "Yes, ma'am," the woman tilted her head. "You're not with the regular staff," Ryan stiffened. "Just filling in, ma'am." She stood up slowly. "And you brought champagne to a table still waiting for appetizers." He looked down at the tray. "Right." "Sorry about that, I'm joking," she said, and her lips curved into the first real smile he'd seen all night. "You just looked like you needed someone to break the ice." He let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "I definitely did. I'm Alessia Summers," she said, offering her hand. He shook it. Her skin was soft, warm. "Ryan Owens, Ryan." She glanced at his name tag. "You're not from the city, Long Island. I usually do small events, weddings, birthday parties, not whatever this is." She leaned in slightly. "This is a fundraiser full of people pretending they care about things they don't." He chuckled. "You don't seem like the type who pretends." She looked up at him, eyes suddenly serious. "I'm not." Ryan cleared his throat. "Well, I should probably get back to wait," she said quickly. "Would you sit with me for a minute?" He blinked. "You want me to sit?" "Just for a second. Everyone here either wants something from me or pretends they don't recognize me." His brow furrowed. "Recognize you?" She waved it off. "Never mind. You're the first person tonight who didn't bring up my last name or try to pitch me something." He hesitated, then sat down beside her. "I'm guessing you're important." She looked at him sideways. "Something like that." Ryan smiled. "Well, miss something important. What are you doing sitting alone?" She shrugged. "I came because my assistant told me I should. I stayed because I saw you walk in looking like you'd rather be anywhere but here." He couldn't help but laugh. "That obvious, huh?" "Pretty much." For a moment they just sat in silence. The chatter around them faded, replaced by the music and the gentle clinking of glasses. "Do you have kids?" she asked. He blinked. "Yeah, one, Maddie, she's 8. Alessia's face softened. "That's a beautiful name." "Thanks. She's out in the van, watching cartoons. Before you panic, I locked the doors, cracked the windows, and she's got snacks and air conditioning. I just didn't have anyone to watch her tonight." "You're raising her alone," he nodded. "Her mom left when she was 3. She didn't ask anything else, just looked at him like she understood more than she let on." "I should go check on her," he said, standing up. "Let me walk you out." "You really don't have to," but she was already walking beside him. Outside, the cool air was a relief. Ryan opened the van door and Maddie lit up when she saw him. "Hey, sweet pea." "Daddy, I finished the sandwich." "Good job," he said, then turned as Alessia stepped closer. Maddie's eyes widened. "Who's that?" "This is Miss Alessia." "She's very nice." Alessia bent down, smiling. Hi, Maddie, your dad's been telling me all about you, Maddie giggled. Are you his friend? Ryan rubbed the back of his neck. Alessia answered for him. I hope so, Maddie grinned. You're really pretty, Alessia laughed. You're my favorite person here already. Ryan looked at the two of them and felt something warm bloom in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Do you have to go back inside? Alessia asked him. He nodded. Yeah. Gotta finish the shift. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a card. If you ever cater private dinners, call me. He took the card, eyes widening at the subtle gold logo. Wait, Summers Capital, she smiled. Guilty. His jaw dropped. You're that Alessia. She tilted her head. Still want to call me Miss Something Important, he laughed, stunned. Honestly, I think I'll just stick to Alessia. Good, she stepped closer. And Ryan. Yeah, I meant what I said. Call me? He watched her walk back into the building, heels clicking against the pavement, her figure disappearing into the glow of the chandelier-lit hall. Maddie looked up at him. Daddy. Yeah, baby, are you gonna marry her? Ryan blinked, then laughed. Let's just finish this gig first, okay? But as he looked down at the card in his hand, something in his chest whispered maybe, just maybe, Ryan didn't call her, not the next day, not the one after that. Not even after Maddie brought it up 3 separate times during breakfast with all the subtlety of a marching band. He just stared at the card whenever he pulled it from the drawer beside the toaster, wondering what she could possibly want from him. He wasn't a private chef. He wasn't even a full-time caterer. He was a dad who patched together side gigs to keep the lights on and make it to parent-teacher meetings on time. Still, he couldn't stop thinking about the way she'd looked at Maddie like she mattered. Or how her voice had dropped when she asked about his daughter, like she knew exactly what loneliness tasted like. By the 5th day, the card had found a permanent home in his back pocket. It was a Thursday afternoon when the decision was made for him. He'd just picked up Maddie from school when his phone buzzed with a new voicemail. The catering company he'd been working with had lost a major contract, and with it went his upcoming shifts. 3 weekends of work gone just like that. He sat on the edge of the playground bench, watching Maddie hang upside down from the monkey bars, her laughter echoing across the park. She didn't know yet, and he wasn't ready to tell her, but he was out of time. That night, after Maddie had fallen asleep clutching her favorite stuffed lion, Ryan stepped into the kitchen and dialed the number on the card. He half expected an assistant or a machine. Instead, her voice came through on the second ring, clear and calm. This is Alessia. He almost hung up. It's Ryan Owens, he said quickly. From the fundraiser. There was a pause, a quiet inhale. I was hoping you'd call. He cleared his throat. You mentioned something about private dinners. I've never done one of those, but if you need someone to cook, I don't want to hire you, she said. He blinked. Then why give me your card? I want to invite you. To what? A dinner, just you and me. He froze. Are you serious? I don't usually do this, she said softly, but I haven't stopped thinking about you. I thought maybe you hadn't called because you weren't interested. He leaned against the counter, heart drumming in his chest. It's not that, I didn't think you were. Ryan, she said, I may own buildings and businesses, but I still know when someone's real. And you're the realest thing I've met in years. He swallowed hard. I've got Maddie, I can't just leave her. I've already arranged something, she said. There's a woman I trust, her name's Maribel. She runs the childcare program at my foundation. I'd like Maddie to meet her. She doesn't warm up to people easily. Then I'll come to you, he blinked. What do you mean? I'll be outside your building tomorrow at 4. If Maddie likes me, we'll talk more. If not, I'll leave it at that. Ryan hesitated. You don't have to do that, I know. The next day, she showed up exactly at 4, wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater, her hair pulled into a loose braid. No driver, no entourage, just her. Maddie peeked through the window and whispered, she looks different. Ryan crouched beside her. That's what people look like when they're not at parties. They met her outside the building. Alessia knelt to Maddie's level and offered a small, wrapped box. I brought something, she said. Only if you want it. Maddie looked at Ryan. He nodded. Inside was a set of watercolor paints and a brand new sketchbook. Maddie's eyes widened. How'd you know I like drawing? I saw the doodles on your juice box, Alessia said. The little cat with glasses, that was genius. Maddie tilted her head. Most grown-ups don't notice stuff like that. I try to pay attention. Ryan crossed his arms, watching the exchange with a mix of curiosity and disbelief. Can I show you my drawings? Maddie asked. I'd love that. They went upstairs, and within 10 minutes, Alessia was seated on the floor beside Maddie's art supplies, listening intently as the little girl explained the difference between dry and wet brush techniques. Ryan stood in the doorway, arms folded, something heavy and unfamiliar rising in his chest. He'd had people in and out of their lives before: teachers, neighbors, 1 or 2 failed dates, but no one had ever looked at Maddie like she was the center of the room. An hour later, Maddie yawned and climbed onto the couch without a word. She was asleep in under 3 minutes. Alessia stood quietly and followed Ryan into the kitchen. That wasn't what I expected, she said. He raised an eyebrow. What did you expect? Resistance, distance. But she's smart. And she trusts you, so she gave me a chance. Ryan leaned against the counter. You're good with kids. I don't have any, she said. Never made the time. Still, you didn't talk down to her. I know what it's like to be talked over. He studied her in the dim kitchen light. You grew up rich, she let out a humorless laugh. No, I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in Newark. My mother cleaned houses. My father left before I could remember him. Ryan blinked. How'd you go from that to owning half the city? I stopped waiting for someone to open a door and started building my own. He nodded slowly. So why me? She met his eyes. Because you didn't ask me for anything. You weren't performing. You were just there, real. And I miss that. Silence settled between them, then she stepped closer. I want to take you somewhere, she said. Just dinner, no expectations. He glanced toward the living room. And Maddie, she'll be with Maribel. I'll send her tomorrow to meet you both before we go. You'll have full control. If Maddie isn't comfortable, we don't go anywhere, he hesitated. You don't owe me anything. I know, that's why I'm here. He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time without the distance of class or circumstance. She wasn't some untouchable millionaire anymore. She was a woman offering him something he hadn't had in years, a choice. He nodded. Okay. For the first time in weeks, something in his chest loosened. Alessia smiled, not the polite kind, not the one reserved for crowds and galas. This one was just for him. I'll pick you up at 7. The black car that pulled up outside Ryan's building wasn't a town car or a limo. It was sleek, quiet, understated. Alessia stepped out wearing a soft navy coat over a tailored dress, her heels tapping against the pavement with calm assurance. By the time she reached the door, Maribel was already inside with Maddie, who was too absorbed in a board game to glance up. Ryan locked the apartment behind him and slid the keys into his pocket. She barely noticed I was leaving. She feels safe, Alessia said as they descended the stairs together. That's a credit to you. He didn't answer. The compliment sat strange in his chest, like it didn't quite know where to land. Inside the car, the warmth and low hum of classical music filled the space. He sat back, suddenly aware of the way his shirt tugged at his shoulders. It was the nicest one he owned, pressed the best he could manage after watching a few online tutorials. Don't worry, Alessia said, noticing his discomfort. You're not walking into anything formal, no cameras, no press, just dinner. He glanced at her. You always pick people up for dinner yourself. Only when I feel like I might actually enjoy it. The car pulled up to a building tucked away on a quiet street in Tribeca. There was no sign, no valet, no line of guests in gowns, only a discreet entrance and a concierge who nodded as they passed. Inside, the space was warm with amber lighting. A single table had been set for 2 near the back, surrounded by walls lined with old books and low shelves of flickering candles. It wasn't a restaurant. It felt more like someone's private library if that someone had impeccable taste and a chef on call. Ryan took it all in silently. He didn't ask how she'd arranged it. The answer was obvious. As they sat, Alessia poured 2 glasses of wine from a decanter already waiting at the table. I don't drink often, he said, eyeing the glass. That's fine, you don't have to. She set hers down untouched. I wasn't sure what you'd be comfortable with. Ryan leaned in slightly. So what is this place? A friend of mine owns it. He lets me use it when I need to get out of my own head. Looks like a good place for that. The first course arrived, a delicate dish of roasted squash and something Ryan couldn't name but tasted like autumn and oak trees. He looked across the table. What do you do when you're not managing empires? She tilted her head. I read, I paint badly, I buy things I don't need, I volunteer when I can. Volunteer where? A shelter in Brooklyn. I don't advertise it, but I go when I can't sleep. You don't sleep much. I used to. Before the board meetings and shareholder calls started coming in from cities I've never stepped foot in, he nodded. That ever get lonely? She didn't answer right away. It's quieter than I thought it would be. Success, I mean. Ryan sat back. I always figured if I ever made it big, I'd take Maddie to Italy. She's obsessed with pasta, thinks spaghetti's a food group. Alessia smiled but didn't laugh. You will, he shook his head. No offense, but people like me don't end up on yachts in the Mediterranean. You're wrong, she said. You just haven't had someone bet on you yet. He looked at her carefully. Is that what this is? You betting on me? No. This is me wanting to know the person who made me forget about my phone for an entire evening. The second course came steak, perfectly seared, with a sauce that made Ryan pause after the first bite. This is ridiculous, he muttered. How does food even taste like this? Magic, she said lightly, then added, and a chef trained in Lyon. Right, that'll do it. There was a silence that settled between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. I don't want to scare you off, Alessia said suddenly. I know this is a lot, he met her gaze. It is, but I'm not scared. Then what are you? He thought for a moment. Wary? Of me? No, of what happens if this starts to matter. Her eyes softened. What would be so bad about that? I've got a daughter who's already had people disappear on her. I can't afford to add to that. I'm not planning to disappear. He set his fork down. And what happens when your world needs you 24 hours a day? What happens when your life goes back to boardrooms and private jets? She reached across the table, fingers brushing his. Then I bring you both with me. He laughed under his breath, shaking his head. You don't even know what you're offering. I do, she said. And I'm not offering it lightly. The third course never made it to the table. Alessia stood, motioned for him to follow, and led him through a hidden door behind the bookshelf. It opened onto a rooftop garden strung with fairy lights, the city's skyline stretching out like a painted canvas. This is insane, Ryan said, stepping into the crisp evening air. She leaned against the railing. Not everything has to make sense right away. He joined her, hands in his coat pockets. Why me? She looked at him, not with pity or admiration, but something deeper. Because when I walked into that fundraiser, I felt like I'd lost something I couldn't name. Then you looked at me like I wasn't a name or a company or a headline. You were sitting alone, he said simply, and you saw me. He didn't answer. The wind tugged at his collar. I want to try this, Alessia said, not some half version. The real thing, you, me, Maddie, all of it. You don't even know what that looks like. Then let's find out. He turned to her. What happens if it doesn't work? Then we'll know we tried. There was a moment brief but electric when neither of them looked away. Then she stepped closer, her voice just above a whisper. Can I kiss you? He didn't speak. He just leaned in. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like a man surviving day to day. He felt like a man being chosen. 3 weeks later, Ryan stood at the edge of the rooftop garden above a midtown building, adjusting the collar of his new charcoal blazer. A string quartet played softly in the background, and the scent of blooming jasmine drifted through the warm night air. The space had been transformed. Wicker lanterns floated above white linen tables, and golden fairy lights wrapped around the trellises overhead. It felt like something out of a dream, but it was real. All of it, including the woman walking toward him now. Alessia wore a tailored ivory pants suit, simple and elegant, with her hair swept back and a quiet confidence in her step. She reached him and slipped her hand into his without hesitation. You're here early, she said. I needed a minute to believe any of this is actually happening. She squeezed his fingers. You still think I'm going to vanish? He glanced at the table nearest the balcony, where Maddie sat giggling with Marable, a plate of chocolate-covered strawberries in front of her. No, I think I'm finally starting to believe you meant it. I did, Alessia said. All of it. The past few weeks hadn't been easy. There were awkward firsts introducing her to Ryan's circle of friends, explaining to Maddie why Alessia sometimes had meetings in other time zones, learning how to cook together without setting off the smoke alarm. But through all of it, Alessia never pulled away. She showed up. Even when she was exhausted from travel, even when she didn't know what to say, she stayed. Ryan looked around at the rooftop at the small gathering of people Alessia had invited, not investors, not executives. Just the few people who mattered most to her, an elderly woman with soft eyes who had once been her mother's employer and later her mentor, an old friend from her scholarship days. Marable, smiling shyly in the corner with a glass of cider. And Maddie, who was already tugging on the sleeve of her new dress and looking every bit like she belonged. "You didn't have to do all this," Ryan said. "I didn't do it for show. I did it because I wanted a moment that felt like us." He turned to her. "Us, huh?" Alessia tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "There is an us now, isn't there?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, there is." The music shifted, slow and rich with strings, and Alessia stepped back, extending her hand. "Dance with me. You sure that's wise?" "I've got 2 left feet and a bad track record with slow songs. I'm not looking for perfect steps." He took her hand, and they moved together, the city glittering around them like it was holding its breath. Her head rested lightly against his shoulder, and for the first time in years, Ryan let himself stop bracing for things to fall apart. "Do you know what I realized today?" she asked, her voice soft. "What's that?" "I haven't checked my phone in 6 hours. He raised an eyebrow. "That's a new record, right?" "By far," he smiled. "What changed?" "I stopped needing the world to tell me I was doing something right." They swayed in silence for a moment longer before Maddie's voice called out. "Daddy!" Ryan turned to see her rushing toward them, shoes abandoned near the table, curls bouncing around her face. "We're out of strawberries." Alessia crouched, brushing Maddie's cheek. "I'll fix that," Maddie beamed. "You always do." Ryan watched them walk hand in hand to the refreshment table, and something inside him settled. Not the kind of settling that came from giving up, but the kind that came from arriving. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the rooftop was quiet, Alessia took Ryan's hand and led him to a bench overlooking the skyline. "I had a call today," she said. "Work?" "No, a developer offered to buy my stake in the Eastside project." "Enough money to retire early," he looked at her. "Are you thinking about taking it?" She turned to him. "I was, but then I started thinking about other things I want, like a small house with a backyard, a messy kitchen, a dog Maddie can name something ridiculous. Mornings that don't start with board meetings, nights that end with dinner at home." Ryan leaned forward. "You're talking about walking away from your company. I'm talking about choosing a different kind of life. You'd give all that up," she smiled. "I'm not giving anything up." "I'm trading up," he stared at her. "You're serious?" "I want a future, not just for me, for you, for Maddie, for all of us." He hesitated. "I don't want you to regret anything." "I regret every year I spent thinking I had to prove I belonged in that world." "I don't want Maddie growing up thinking she has to earn love with success." Ryan sat back, heart thudding in his chest. "You know, when we met, I thought you were just being kind." "I was. But now you're being something else. I'm being honest." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Ryan's breath caught. "Is this?" She opened it, revealing a simple ring, not flashy. Not ostentatious, just beautiful. "I don't need a headline proposal," she said. "I just need you." He stared at the ring, then at her. "You want to marry me?" "No," she said. "I want to marry us, you, Maddie, everything you come with." Ryan swallowed hard. "I didn't think people like me got endings like this." "You didn't get it," she said. "You built it." He took the ring from the box and slipped it onto his finger instead. "Then I think I should be the one asking." Alessia laughed. "Too late." He pulled her close. "Alessia Summers, will you marry me?" She leaned in, her lips brushing his. Yes, the kiss that followed wasn't dramatic or rushed. It was steady. Certain, the kind of kiss that comes when two people know exactly what they're choosing. Maddie's footsteps echoed behind them. "Are you guys kissing again?" Ryan turned to her. "We're getting married." Maddie blinked. "Do I get a dress with sparkles?" Alessia grinned. "You can design your own." Maddie squealed and launched herself between them, wrapping her arms around both. "Can we have pancakes at the wedding?" Ryan laughed. "Anything you want, honey." As the three of them stood together under the city lights, Alessia looked out over the skyline one last time. "I used to think power meant being untouchable, but now I think it means being known." "Really known?" Ryan kissed her temple. "Then you're the most powerful woman I've ever met." And this time, when he held her hand, he didn't feel like a man out of place. He felt like a man at home. The late spring breeze drifted through the open windows of the cottage, carrying the scent of lavender and fresh rain across the sunlit kitchen. It was a modest house tucked into a quiet stretch of Hudson Valley shiplap walls, creaky floorboards, and a backyard that sloped into a grove of old trees. The kind of place Ryan never imagined living in, let alone owning. But there it was paid for, deeded, and filled with the small, steady sounds of a life being lived. Alessia stood barefoot at the sink, drying a mug with a faded floral towel. She wore a loose cotton dress, her engagement ring catching the light as she moved. Her phone buzzed on the counter, but she ignored it. She hadn't checked emails in 3 days, and the world hadn't ended. From the hallway, Maddie's voice rang out over the hum of a record spinning in the other room. "Where's the glitter glue? I can't finish the dragon without it." Ryan leaned against the doorframe, grinning. "Try the bottom drawer in the art cart, next to the googly eyes." "I already looked there. Wait, never mind. Found it." Alessia set the mug down and turned to him. "You remember where everything is in that cart? I've been reorganizing it with her for weeks. We've got a system now." He crossed the kitchen, slid his arms around her waist. Color-coded chaos. She rested her forehead against his chest. "I take it she's still determined to make her own wedding invitations. She said if she can't have a pet dragon at the ceremony, then at least the invites should have won." He kissed the top of her head. "I told her you'd agree. I already ordered the parchment paper." Ryan pulled back slightly, studying her. "You still sure about all this?" Alessia looked up at him, her expression clear. "You're not getting cold feet, are you?" "No," he said. "But it feels like I keep waking up wondering when I'm going to mess this up." "You haven't. Yet." She stepped back, holding his gaze. "Ryan, I left behind a life that looked perfect on paper, because it didn't feel like anything. This," she gestured around them, "this feels like everything." He reached for her hand, letting his thumb trace the inside of her wrist. "I still don't know how I got here." "You didn't get here by accident." Her voice softened. "You built this with me, every day. Every messy, wonderful day." At that moment, Maddie raced into the room, glitter on her cheeks and a strip of gold foil stuck to her elbow. "Can we do a trial run of the vows? I wrote mine. Want to hear them?" Alessia crouched. "Absolutely." Maddie cleared her throat dramatically, holding a sheet of notebook paper. "I, Maddie Owens, promise to love, protect, and occasionally share my snacks with Daddy and Alessia. I promise to let them kiss even when it's gross, and I promise to always tell the truth. Unless it's about surprise parties." Ryan knelt beside her, laughing. "I think you just set the bar for all of us." Maddie beamed. "I'm gonna go make a crown for the ceremony. Do you think I can use the glitter paint?" Alessia nodded. "As long as it stays on the crown." Maddie bolted back down the hallway. Ryan watched her go, then turned to Alessia. "She's happier than I've ever seen her. She knows she's safe now." He looked around the kitchen. "I guess I do too." The wedding took place 2 weeks later in the backyard, under a canopy of flowering trees. There were no photographers, no media, no press releases, just friends, a handful of neighbors, and a small string trio Alessia had secretly flown in from Florence, because Ryan had once mentioned how much he loved the sound of the cello. Maddie walked down the aisle first, wearing a silver crown and carrying a bouquet of wildflowers she'd arranged herself. Then came Alessia, radiant in a sleeveless ivory dress with delicate buttons down the back, her eyes never leaving Ryan's. He waited beneath the arch they'd built together, clumsy and uneven and perfect. When she reached him, she took his hands and whispered, "You changed my entire world." He smiled. "You gave me a new one." They exchanged vows that were honest and a little crooked. Ryan stumbled once. Alessia laughed when she mispronounced steadfast, but every word rang true. When they kissed, Maddie clapped so hard she dropped her basket of rose petals. That night, they ate cheesecake instead of traditional wedding cake and danced barefoot in the grass until the candles burned low and the music faded into crickets. Ryan held Alessia close beneath the stars, the weight of the world gone, replaced by something far heavier and more permanent: peace. 3 months later, Alessia officially announced her departure from Summers' capital. She didn't sell the company, she passed it to the board and kept a single chair as a quiet advisor, enough to guide, never to control. She started a foundation instead focused on single parents, affordable housing, and arts education for underfunded schools. Ryan helped her design the programming. Maddie painted the first logo. Their days settled into a rhythm of early breakfasts, homework checks, garden soil under their fingernails, and evenings spent on the porch swing watching the sun dip behind the trees. One night long after Maddie had gone to sleep, Ryan found Alessia in the backyard, barefoot beneath the string lights staring up at the stars. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "What are you thinking about?" She leaned into him. "How strange it is that the life I thought I wanted was nothing compared to the one I almost missed." He kissed her shoulder. "You didn't miss it." "No," she said, turning to face him. "I found exactly what I needed." They stood there for a while, no need for more words. The house behind them was quiet, steady, a home, and for the first time in their lives, neither of them was waiting for something better, because they had already built it, together, forever.